Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Tavis Leaf Glover, and today we're continuing the photo composition masterclass. This is episode 4, and we're going to be looking at the top 3 photos by Sebastiao Salgado. I'll be honest, I never really looked at his images until I did this video, and I was pretty impressed. He's kind of like a fine art photographer like Ansel Adams. He does quite a few different images, and we're going to start with this one. This is part of his Genesis series, and it's just one of the many awesome photos that he's done. And the first thing I noticed is it looks like a composite. Maybe I'll show you this area here. Maybe he did focus stacking. That's a technique where you can focus on the foreground, take a picture, focus on the background, take a picture, and then focus over here, take a picture, and then he can stitch them all together in Photoshop. So you have focus here, here, and here. Because as we see it now, every plane, the foreground, middle ground, and background are all pretty much in focus. And any photographer knows that even if you set your aperture up to the highest priority, f22 or whatever, and you focus on this little penguin in the foreground, you're going to see a little bit of bokeh as it continues to the background. But we've got a lot of focus right here. You can see all these background penguins are pretty much in focus, and so is that mountain. Looks pretty sharp. So he's using some type of technique, and I've seen evidence in a few of his other images that he's done photo manipulation, but that's fine. He's a fine art photographer. He can do what he wants, and it's not like he's Steve McCurry and trying to document actual events as they are, pure and unfiltered, and then coming back in and photoshopping them to trick all of us.
Are you against photoshopping on your work? Is that something that you...
So this one's definitely manipulated in some way, probably that focus stacking. It's a really cool image, and this is part of his artistic style, just capturing a lot of different subjects within one scene, and we'll see that in a couple of his other photos that we're going to cover. But this is part of his artistic style. If you haven't really developed your artistic style, it's basically something we all go through in the beginning. You don't really know what to shoot, you don't know how to shoot it, you don't know what you like yet, so you're just kind of photographing everything from your family to pets to friends to landscapes. You just photograph pretty much everything.
And I know you know that I know you.
But the more experience you get, the more you kind of understand what you like and what you don't like.
8 years gone so fast. I had the privilege to see the most incredible things on the planet and discover that close to half of the planet is yet pristine, is yet as the day of the Genesis.
And then you start developing these things like little consistencies, like capturing a lot of different subjects. Maybe another element of his artistic style is focus stacking, so that could be part of his artistic style too. It's just to give you an idea. If you're not sure about artistic style, just try and find consistencies and keep consistent. I've written an article on this, and there's more info on the site if you're interested, but just try and photograph consistencies, like the same subject, same kind of techniques. Annie Leibovitz is another one. She's got a very strong artistic style, and I cover a lot of different ingredients of her recipe on the site. Got a lot of them, but it basically just means try and be consistent with your work. It's kind of like your brand. That way people can identify your work without seeing your name right under it. They can say, oh wow, that looks familiar, and they can follow your work and know what to expect. So it's a good image. I did notice one thing that maybe could improve it a little bit, even though it's pretty epic, it's pretty awesome, but there's not really, I mean, with this many subjects, there's not really one subject, but it does look like this guy's kind of, wanting to be the star, because he's got that, if we look closer, he's got that aspect of view. He's turned sideways, so we can see his beak there. He's right in the foreground. He's high contrast, but he's getting clipped off right here. And then the figure-ground relationship is a little bit fused with the background. So if he wanted to have this character stand out more, he could improve the figure-ground relationship. Maybe he could have repositioned the camera to solo out this guy to clean up the background a little bit behind him. Find a little area of negative space he could position the penguin in. He could edit him out, since he's okay with editing things. Could have done a lot of different things if you wanted to make this the star of the show. But even if it was the star of the show, we take that vertical center line and the horizontal center line, and we kind of look at the balance. He's got it pretty well balanced from left to right, but if this is the star of the show and he's looking towards the edge of the frame there, that doesn't help the balance. It would be better if he was facing this way and looking towards this area over here to help the balance. See, the direction your subject is facing can influence the balance of your composition, so you always got to be careful of that. Also, this guy here, he looks like he could be one of the stars of the show at the bottom here, but as it is right now, it's just, there is no star. It's just like the whole scene. Everybody's equally important. It's the law of similarity. That's a Gestalt psychology principle, and it's just basically meaning that these are all similar, so they're grouped together as one. We see them as one full unit. But I did make some edits to try and add more depth to the scene, so we'll see that here. Now look, what we did here is we added aerial perspective, and that just basically is adding more fog. Wherever this is, it looks pretty cold, and we would probably see like maybe some fog here, maybe some chilly fog would add a lot to the scene. but the way he edited it, he took out all the depth. Kind of like Ansel Adams, some of Ansel Adams' photos where they kind of look HDR'd. This looks HDR'd because everything's crisp and high contrast, and there's absolutely zero depth aside from the hierarchy of size here, okay? So we add aerial perspective, and by the way, it's one of the techniques that provokes the most emotion in art. I did an article on this where it covers the arabesque, gamut, and aerial perspective, and aerial perspective ranks the best for provoking emotion in art. It's just like you're driving on a road and you see the fog in the distance and the trees are popping through the fog. It just looks really cool, and everybody loves a nice foggy scene. So when we add a little bit of aerial perspective, we get more depth and we can create more mystery as well. But that's obviously not the look he was going for. But I'll show you what I did. I used this brightness and contrast layer, and I just used a mask over it several times to reduce the contrast. And this one is just a cloud image. You can see kind of what that looks like here. Just a cloud image, and I used a mask over that, and that breaks up the background a little bit. And then I controlled some of the edge flicker. So if you look at the edges, you don't want high contrast near the edge because it's going to draw attention. So I'm going to turn this on and off. You'll see the difference it makes around the edges there. So see how his feet are clipped, but there's high contrast right there, like his feet are clipped off the edge, which is kind of distracting. But also there's the light area on his foot and then the dark area of shadow. So that's creating a lot of high contrast near the edge. Same with this over here, high contrast next to the black. So you want to try and control that. I'm not editing anything out, I'm just subduing that a little bit with a little vignette. You know, I just added a layer, painted some black on there, and then reduced the opacity. You don't want it very obvious, you just want it to be hidden, but you want it to be subdued. So this is only at 10%. And then I'll show you this one where I improve the figure-ground relationship on the penguin.
Here I come.
If you wanted to make that stand out a little bit better, see how I edited out the background, make them pop a little bit more. That looks really quick. You'd probably want to do it a lot better if you were serious about it and you wanted that to be a certain effect, but I just wanted to show you that. So that's that one. Let's move on to the next one. And this one's pretty good. It's pretty standard, but you can see he's capturing a lot of subjects again, right? This is his migration series.
In a moment, when I was doing my book called Migration, I was living so inside. I had days in Rwanda to see 10,000, 15,000 people die. So many violence. I start to be sick.
Should definitely check out his photos. He's got these series. I mean, there's tons of great ones. So right here, now we see that natural aerial perspective in the background. See how much depth we've got here compared to this one over here? You know, this is absolutely zero depth, which is fine. It's a certain look, but we've got nice depth here, and you don't want to reduce that depth. That's really nice, and that's one of the reasons why Ansel Adams' third image from episode 1, it was just so epic. You usually only see those kind of shots in movies like Lord of the Rings or whatever, but it's such an epic shot. So you want to try and keep this depth. Like I said, it's up to you, but it's definitely one of those techniques that provokes emotion in your art. So I'm going to pop in the 1.5 grid, the major area divisions. That just means there's 4 smaller grids inside the mother. And we'll see how he balanced this, and we'll take a look at all the diagonals and stuff. So we can see the diagonals aren't paralleling the grid, which is fine, but he's capturing diagonals. That's always good. This isn't paralleling exactly either, but capturing diagonals makes your image a little more dynamic rather than just straight up and down lines within your scene. See all these diagonals he's capturing? That's why we use dynamic symmetry. It promotes those diagonals. It promotes repeating diagonals. That's gamut right here. A lot of repeating diagonals, and it's a limited number of diagonals, not like the spokes on your tire here where we're creating a lot of diagonals in the different directions. If you limit them, it has more power because you can create a hidden repetition within the scene. So let's take a look at the balance from left to right. He's got this guy centered here, and then everybody's gazing direction is going that way. We've got this clump of people that are small, and then this clump of people that are big. So it's kind of balancing it from left to right here. I cover this also in the Gestalt Psychology video collection, but it covers that visual weight. And if your subject is large here and in close proximity to that vertical center line, then you can counterbalance it with smaller things further away from that center line, and then it helps that balance from left to right. It's kind of like a teeter-totter, just the way you position that fulcrum in the middle here and how you position visual weight from left to right. Pretty fun to use. If you're struggling with the composition, just be sure to subscribe. Check out these new videos. This is going to be an epic, awesome series full of 50 photographers or more. And if you have photographers in mind, you can leave a comment down below and I can see if I can do an episode on them as well. But definitely check out other videos if you're struggling with composition. This whole channel is dedicated to composition, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I know there's some things in here that can help you out if you're struggling. So that image is pretty simple. It's straight to the point, but its execution is excellent. The way he's capturing the diagonals, the repeating diagonals, the aerial perspective, the multiple subjects, and then balancing balancing them from the left and right of that vertical center line here. So it's a great image. This is my favorite though, not only because of my taste, but also because of the composition. It's an epic shot and it's just jaw-dropping, amazing.
Many times people tell to me that they were photographer of misery. I never photograph misery, never. I photograph people that were in hard conditions, difficult conditions. But miserable for me is the person that lives alone, outside of a group, isolated. That is a human misery, total.
And we can see this detail shot. It's just people climbing up. It reminds me of a scene from Lord of the Rings when they're breaching the castle. You got all these trolls and orcs running up the side of the castle. It's just pretty awesome. And this reminds me of that. It's just hard to believe that people even work in these kind of conditions. Just climbing up these rickety ladders with heavy weight on their back. They're all covered in mud. It's just pretty amazing to see. So let's go back to this and we'll see just, you know, he's capturing multiple subjects again. He's got aerial perspective within the scene, which is nice. Capturing this arabesque here. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll draw it out here. This line coming down, it's swirling around this little tunnel here. Not sure what's there, but it's leading our eyes down there, and he's captured it. He's seen that, and he's including that in his composition. He's making sure we get that whole arabesque there. If we look closer, we can see it's just like probably like a pit where they're digging here maybe, and then everybody's tunneling it out and up the mountain. Pretty awesome. Look at just crazy. Shelves, mud, and dirt, and just, man, pulling it out of the pits of the earth.
When you do this fractional second intervention, you must have a nice composition. You must deal with the light.
Up here we've got all that aerial perspective. So this is that's what aerial perspective does. It's a jaw dropper. All this, just look at all the depth it adds there. So amazing. Such a great shot. The repetition of all these people, all these ladders repeating. If you look at the design, let me drop a grid in there. Just drag and drop this one in there. Same one. We're gonna turn it. We're gonna check the balance. So we got this line paralleling and locking into this. This is the Baroque diagonal, going from lower left to upper right. We got this line of people here lining up there, and then we've got this line of people locking in there. Of course, there's so many people, it's just everybody can be locking in on something, right? But just interesting to see the dominant diagonals and the dominant movements locking in there with that diagonal. And then we'll check the balance. So he's got a lot of the people on the left side here of that vertical center line, the horizontal. So we've got all these people here, and then he's got the mountainside here adding interest. So we've got that counterpart interest on both sides helping the balance, and then they're crossing over that vertical center line to the top here. So he's definitely capturing that movement correctly, and just an epic shot. And when we divide it from the horizontal center line, we can check the balance from top to bottom. He's got no negative space down here, right? And then he's got this negative space up here with the aerial perspective. All this negative space up here. So that's nice, and that's creating a bottom to top balance, which we usually see in photos, bottom to top. If you watched the last episode with Irving Penn, the photo of Salvador Dali, we talked about the balance and how it could be adjusted with the gazing direction depending on where your subject is and where their gaze is. Pretty interesting. Check that one out. But that's it for this one. That's Sebastiao Salgado. I hope you guys enjoyed that, but be sure to leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions. Give it a like, subscribe. A lot of you guys aren't subscribing, so make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, and keep in touch. I'll talk to you later.